She will never declare war with a trumpet blast. There will be no manifesto, no raised flag, no ultimatum delivered in a loud voice. Her invasion is silent, gradual, and it begins with a single question planted in your mind like a seed of doubt. "Are you absolutely certain?" she'll ask, her head tilted at that perfect angle of concern. Perhaps you're reading too much into it. Perhaps you're being a little paranoid. And with those 11 words, she plants a flag in the territory of your mind. She doesn't need to draw your blood. She doesn't need to raise her voice or threaten your life with fire and fury. She only needs you to believe with all your heart that your perception of reality is less valid than hers. That's the first fortress she captures. And here's the tragedy that would make Machiavelli weep with grim recognition. You will thank her for the invasion. You will rename it love. You will call it compromise, call it growth, call it emotional intelligence. But it is surrender, pure, total, and voluntary. Niccolo Machiavelli, the Florentine secretary who watched empires rise and fall from his study in the early 16th century, understood this dynamic with a clarity that no modern psychologist has ever matched. He knew that power is never given freely, it is taken, or it is lost. There is no third option. Power is not a gift, it is a conquest. Every moment of your life, you are either expanding your territory or retreating from it. In his discourses on the first 10 books of Titus Livy, written in 1517 and published 1531, Machiavelli observed something that should chill you. Men almost always walk in the paths beaten by others, proceeding in their actions by imitation, but they rarely, if ever, see the traps laid along those well-worn paths. They walk with their eyes on the ground, following the footsteps of those before them, never looking up to see the snares that await. The most beaten path in human history is the belief that female affection is a direct reward for male virtue. You operate under the assumption that your kindness, your patience, your willingness to provide and protect will automatically earn you her loyalty. In reality, you are paying for your own execution with currency she never asked for. You are offering payment for a debt she never incurred, and she will take it, and she will spend it, and she will leave you bankrupt. Let us be brutally honest with ourselves, something most men avoid at all costs. Women are not chaotic by nature. They are not irrational creatures of pure emotion, as the Romantics would have you believe. They are strategic by biological and social necessity. This is not an insult. It is an observation. It is not a judgment. It is a fact. To ignore it is to fight reality, and reality always wins. A woman who cannot accurately assess the strength and stability of a man cannot secure her own future or the future of her potential offspring. For 99% of human history, this assessment was a matter of life and death. Evolution does not forget these lessons. They are encoded in her DNA, in her instincts, in the way she looks at you, in the way she tests you. Every glance is an audit. Every word is an interrogation. From the very first word you speak, the evaluation begins. It is not personal. It is not even conscious most of the time. It is simply the oldest protocol in the mammalian world. Test the strength before you trust the protection. She arrives 52 minutes late. You think it's traffic. You think it's an accident. You think it's beyond her control. She knows it's a test, and she knows that how you respond will tell her everything. The question is not why she is late. The question is, what do you do? Will you adjust your reality to accommodate her, thereby teaching her that your time, your schedule, your very perception of punctuality is negotiable? Or will you hold your frame, your standard, your reality? Will you say without words, "My time is valuable, and if you cannot respect it, you cannot have access to it"? Your answer to her unspoken questions teaches her more than any conversation about your job title, your annual income, your ambitions, or your childhood trauma ever could. Words are cheap. Words are the smokescreen behind which armies move. Behavior is the contract written in blood that cannot be broken without consequence. Behavior is the truth that words can only decorate, and she is reading your behavior like a book written in a language she understands perfectly. She mentions an ex-boyfriend in casual conversation, watching your face with the corner of her eye. She notes the dilation of your pupils, the slight tightening of your jaw, the micro-expression of insecurity that flashes across your features before you can suppress it. This is a test of sovereignty, a test of whether your sense of self is intrinsic or whether it depends on external validation, a test of whether you are a king or a subject. Do you grow dark with possessive insecurity, revealing that your sense of self is fragile and dependent on her history? Do you let her past dictate your present? Do you let her ghosts haunt your house? Or do you remain unmoved, perhaps even amused, demonstrating that your value is intrinsic and not determined by the ghosts of her past? Do you grow dark or do you grow still? Do you react or do you respond? She dismisses your idea with a theatrical roll of her eyes in front of others, a public test of conviction. Do you abandon your position immediately, seeking her approval like a dog begging for a treat? Do you collapse your reality to avoid her disapproval? Do you make yourself small so she can feel big? Do you dim your light so hers can shine? This is not love. This is self-immolation on the altar of her approval. Or do you hold your ground, comfortable with disagreement, knowing that your thoughts have value independent of her validation? This is not about being right. This is about being unshakable. This is about being a mountain. A man who cannot tolerate disagreement will be ruled by anyone who disagrees with him. A man who needs everyone to agree with him is a man who has already surrendered his throne. What you, in your innocence, call being understanding or choosing your battles or not making a big deal out of nothing, she registers with the cold accuracy of a seismograph as weakness. And Machiavelli was unambiguous on this point. There is no virtue in accommodation when what is being accommodated is the erosion of yourself. There is no honor in surrender when the enemy is within your own walls. He wrote in The Prince, published posthumously in 1532, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. The same applies to you. Look at the people you surround yourself with. Do they make you stronger? Do they challenge you? Do they hold you accountable? Or do they just nod along, validating your weakness, comforting you in your surrender? If you cannot read her tests, you are surrounded by the wrong counsel, including the counsel of your own desperate, lonely hopes. The worst advice often comes from the voice inside your own head that tells you to wait, to hope, to try harder. You will follow her advice against your own interests and call it partnership. You will take her criticisms as constructive feedback and call it growth. You will internalize her doubts and call it self-awareness. And she will watch you do it, and she will lose respect for you with every inch you yield. Every time you bend, you break a little. Every time you yield, you lose a piece of yourself. You believe your willingness to please, your endless capacity for accommodation, your fear of her disapproval earns you love. But Machiavelli's most enduring, most uncomfortable lesson is this: it is much safer to be feared than loved if one of the two must be lacking. He did not mean that you should be cruel or tyrannical. He meant that love is held by a chain of obligation which, men being selfish and opportunistic, will break the moment it serves their purpose. But fear is held by the dread of punishment which never deserts you. Fear is consistent. Fear is reliable. Fear doesn't wake up one morning and decide it doesn't feel like being afraid anymore. A woman may love the man she can manipulate. It gives her a delicious sense of control, of power, of safety in her ability to steer the ship. But she respects the one she cannot move. And respect, not affection, is the bedrock of lasting loyalty. Affection is just the weather. It changes, it shifts, it passes. Respect is the climate. It endures, it defines, it lasts. You cannot build a life on weather. You need a climate. Understand this with the clarity of a battlefield report. Every interaction is a referendum on your sovereignty. She is not just a woman you desire. She is a neighboring nation testing the strength of your borders, the readiness of your army, the resolve of your will. Do you inspect your borders, or do you leave them unguarded and hope for the best? Do you have sentries posted, or do you sleep with the gates wide open? Hope is not a strategy. Hope is surrender in advance. If you think any of this is about playing childish games of manipulation, you are still asleep at the wheel of your own life. This is not seduction. This is not pickup artistry. This is the recognition of a fundamental truth. All human groups, including couples, organize around strength. It's not political correctness, it's anthropology. It's not opinion, it's observation. It's not ideology, it's biology. You can deny it. You can call it outdated. You can call it patriarchal. But denial does not change reality. It just makes you blind to the game being played around you. If you think any of this is about playing childish games of manipulation, you are still asleep at the wheel of your own life. This is not seduction. This is not pickup artistry. This is the recognition of a fundamental truth. All human groups, including couples, organize around strength. It's not political correctness, it's anthropology. It's not opinion, it's observation. It's not ideology, it's biology. And biology doesn't care about your feelings. Machiavelli observed something in his Florentine histories that cuts to the bone. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. She will see your kindness, your generosity, your patience, your willingness to buy her dinner and open doors. But she will experience your boundaries. She will experience your no. She will experience what happens when she pushes too far. And that experience will define your relationship, not the door you held open. And she will trust the experience, not the appearance. Because experience is data, hard and unforgiving. Appearance is just a campaign promise, and no one with half a brain truly believes campaign promises. They are the background noise of social performance. They are the music before the battle. But when the battle comes, the music stops, and only action remains. She cries, a storm of emotion that seems to come from the very depths of her soul. But in every storm, there is an eye, a point of absolute calm, of detached observation. And from that eye, she watches you. She monitors your response with the focus of a scientist observing a lab rat. Will you react? Will you panic? Will you try to fix it? Or will you remain still? Will you fold your convictions like a cheap chair to comfort her tears? Will you abandon your truth, your perspective, your reality to soothe her momentary distress? If you do, you have taught her the most dangerous lesson. Your center is for rent. And if your center is for rent, someone will eventually move in and evict you. She will take over the lease. She will become the landlord of your soul, and you will pay rent with your self-respect. Machiavelli advised rulers in chapter 18 of The Prince to appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, and religious, and to actually be so to the greatest extent possible, but to be ready, mentally and emotionally, to act in the opposite manner when necessity commands it. And the necessity here, in the quiet war of intimacy, is truth. Truth demands that you do not abandon yourself to fix her, because if you abandon yourself, there is no you left for her to relate to. There is only a hollow shell trying to be what she wants, a ghost haunting its own house. And ghosts cannot protect anyone. Ghosts cannot lead. Ghosts cannot love. If you abandon your center to manage her emotions, you teach her that your core is negotiable, that your boundaries are just suggestions, that your reality is subordinate to hers. And a man with a negotiable center cannot be relied upon in a crisis. She will feel comfortable with you, but she will never feel secure. Comfort without security is just a waiting room, and eventually she will leave the waiting room for someone who offers both. You will not find the answer you seek in comfort. You will not discover the truth about her or about yourself in the easy, pleasant moments. You will find it only when you have the courage to disrupt the script, to break the pattern, to introduce a variable she cannot predict. You must become unpredictable to those who would predict and control you. You must become a variable, not a constant. You must become the chaos in her equation. Say the word no without following it with a novel of explanation, without justifying, without appeasing. Withdraw your attention, your energy, your validation without drama, without anger, without a scene, and then do nothing. Simply watch what remains when you stop performing. When you stop performing, the real her has no choice but to appear. When you stop reacting, her reactions become your data. When you stop chasing, you find out who chases you. A woman who is anchored in reality, who has her own center, who is worthy of your investment, will not shatter at your boundaries. She may be frustrated. Frustration is natural. But she will adapt. She will respect the strength she cannot manipulate. She will value the man she cannot control. She will stay because she chooses to, not because she has no choice. But the one who lives for dominion, whose sense of self depends on controlling those around her, cannot tolerate a man she cannot move. And she will show you exactly who she is, not in her calm moments, but in her reaction to your resistance. Her resistance to your boundary is not the problem. Her reaction to your consistency over time, that is the truth. Her tantrum is not your fault. It is her revelation. In 1513, Machiavelli was writing about how the Roman consuls, those masters of realpolitik, would sometimes deliberately expose their own armies to danger. They would create controlled crises to test the mettle of their soldiers and expose hidden traitors before they could strike. They understood that a test is not an act of aggression. It is an act of intelligence. It is gathering information, and information is the most valuable currency in any relationship. The principle is eternal, whether on the battlefield of Rome or in the living room of a suburban home. Pressure reveals truth. You cannot know the strength of a fortress until you test its walls. You cannot know the loyalty of a woman until you test her response to your no. Her yes when you are easy means nothing. Her loyalty when you are convenient is worthless. What matters is her response when you are difficult, when you say no, when you stand your ground. You have been trained your entire life to please, to accommodate, to believe that accommodation is kindness, and that kindness is the highest virtue. But the truth is colder than any therapist will tell you. Accommodation guarantees eventual rejection, and resistance reveals character. Let me repeat that because it is the single most important sentence you will hear today. Pleasing guarantees rejection, and resistance reveals character. Write it down. Memorize it. Live it. Not anger. Resistance. Not cruelty. Resistance. The simple, almost inhuman act of not being moved by the storms that swirl around you. The act of being a mountain while the weather rages. Not anger. Resistance. Not cruelty. Resistance. The simple, almost inhuman act of not being moved by the storms that swirl around you. The act of being a mountain while the weather rages. The Machiavellian man does not argue with her reality. He does not plead for understanding. He does not explain himself endlessly, hoping she will finally see his perspective. He observes, he filters, he tests, because what cannot withstand scrutiny is not worth keeping. He filters, he sifts, he separates the gold from the dross, and what collapses under pressure was never real in the first place. It was a performance, a mask, a temporary alignment of convenience. Let it collapse. Let it wash away. The truth, even when it hurts, is the only solid ground on which to build. A house built on lies will fall. A relationship built on performance will end. She may tell you, with absolute sincerity, that she wants a gentle man, a sensitive man, a man in touch with his feelings, and she may believe it when she says it. Yet she will vanish like morning fog the moment you prioritize her feelings over your own truth. Her words are just the music. Her feet, her actions, her staying power when you are difficult, these are the dance, and her feet will always, always carry her to what she respects. She will leave, and you will let her, because you know that anyone who can be lost was never yours to keep. Anyone who leaves because you set a boundary was doing you a favor. The promise given was a necessity of the past, Machiavelli wrote in a moment of profound clarity, and the word broken is a necessity of the present. She promised to love, honor, and respect the man she thought you were when you met. But when she saw you yield to her moods like grass in the wind, when she watched you accommodate her manipulations with a smile, when she observed you center your entire existence around keeping her calm and happy, you broke the illusion of strength. And she was right to break her word. You gave her no alternative. You left her no choice but to respect you less. You taught her that you were not the man she thought you were. A woman does not need more of your love. She likely receives love from multiple sources. What she needs, what she craves on a level she may not even understand, is a mirror, an unshakable reflection of reality that she can orient herself by when she loses her way. And you, if you are worthy of the title man in its deepest sense, must become that mirror, polished by discipline, unclouded by fear or hope, demanding nothing but truth, and possessing the courage to walk away, without hesitation, from anything less. Walk away, not in anger, not in spite. Walk away because you must. Walk away because your soul demands it. Walk away because staying would cost you everything. You can leave this video now, click away, and return to your comfortable life. You can go back to pretending that love is pure, that effort is always enough, that women are innocent victims, and boundaries are harsh, unfeeling things. That is one path. It is well worn and leads nowhere. Or you can begin. You can start today, in this moment, to test her silence, test her anger, test her consistency, test the integrity of her word. Because any woman who cannot withstand scrutiny does not deserve your investment, and any man who refuses to test is already lost. Any man who fears the truth more than he fears loneliness is already defeated. Any man who would rather be comfortable than be real is already dead. Now, test everything and trust no mask, because the only person you can truly trust is the one who has passed every test, including the test of time, and that person might be you. If you found truth in these words, if this message resonated with something deep inside you that you've been afraid to acknowledge, then share it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join the conversation in the comments below. Every time you share this message, another man wakes up before it's too late. Every time you speak the truth, another soul is saved from surrender. This is how kingdoms are saved, one awakened man at a time.